Good morning. Happy Saturday. It is Saturday, and Happy New Year, because I haven't been around to wish you all a Happy New Year. I'm just getting over a really bad chest cold, and it doesn't help that I smoke. So I recognize that. But I did want to, speaking of recognizing, I did want to talk about recognizing and how that fits into my practice for making myself feel better, and self-love and self-care and self-compassion. R.A.I.N, I've talked about it before. It's an acronym, and it really helps me walk through this practice whenever I feel bad. And lately, I have been feeling bad because every time I have to come to the Central Valley of California, where my grandmother lives, it stresses me out a lot. One, because I used to live here, and not in Modesto, but I lived in the Central Valley for about 18 years. There are just so many negative emotions associated with the valley that as soon as, when I'm driving, there's this one landmark, and as soon as I pass it, it's like a complete, my mind, and I'm not even paying attention to it. I try to listen to podcasts and things while I'm driving to try to keep my mind occupied, but it doesn't matter. Every time I pass this landmark, all of a sudden my demeanor changes, and I get super tense, and I feel it in my gut, I feel it in my chest, I feel it in my shoulders, and then my face starts to get all screwed up with a frown. And at some point in all of that, I recognize that I am feeling a certain way, and all these emotions came knocking on my door, and they want my attention. And this is the difference. So, okay, wait, time out. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll walk through the practice and then we'll talk about it. So they come knocking on my door, and these emotions, as soon as I acknowledge them, it's like opening the door when somebody rings your doorbell and you know who's on the other side of the door. Oh, hi. Anger, frustration, anxiety. Hi again. Good to see ya. So, as soon as I acknowledge them, though, there's this ease that I can breathe. I can breathe again. And when I acknowledge them, I start to talk to them. And that's I. That's the I in R.A.I.N. So we've done R.A.I. All right. That's the inquiry. Now, sometimes questions can be dangerous when we're exploring some difficult emotions. And so if you're doing this, just make sure that you ask the questions that are going to be safe. So, for instance, instead of asking, why do I feel this way? Well, I know why I feel this way. I don't need to explore that anymore. I know exactly why I feel this way. And so instead, my inquiry is always, what do you need? You're here for a reason. What do you need? And I actually this is what works for me. It may be different for other people. But I actually imagine my emotions as characters, as people, personas, different versions of me. And we sit around a table and have tea. And many teachers do talk about this, many psychological and meditation teachers and stuff, they talk about invite your shadow self to tea. And without getting in too deep about the shadow is not bad. The shadow is part of us. The shadow is all the stuff that we want to keep buried, that we don't want people to see. Kind of like the skeletons in the closet. But it's also all the negative garbage inside of us that keeps us feeling full of shame and guilt and anger and rage and sadness and depression and anxiety and all these negative emotions. The shadow self, the school of thought that talks about the shadow self says that all of these emotions, they might be negative, but they're not bad. And they can be useful. They're there for a reason. They're there to tell us something or protect us or whatever it is. So, I digress. Inquiry, that's right. Inquiry. What do you need right now? What is it that you need right now? And so all of us sit around, we have a round table discussion, and I will discover what I need sometimes. And sometimes I don't. Sometimes I need to say, okay, this is really too big right now. And so let's put these things in, basically put a pin in it, put it on our bulletin board with a pin in it. And we'll revisit it when we're in a better place. So, but I gotta say, okay, when I felt that tightness, when I was driving here, there's that landmark I pass, and the moment I start feeling these feelings and I recognize and acknowledge, my inquiry says, what do you need? One time, I needed to scream. I just needed to scream and smash things. And so I was doing this all in my mind. I wasn't physically doing these things. I have a very vivid imagination. And so, that's, again, visualization really works well for me. And that was the nurture. So that's N in R.A.I.N, nurture. There have been times when I have thrown rocks in the ocean. That's what I needed to do to nurture. But yeah, so anyway, my mind is starting to wander. I'm just waking up and having my first cup and just thinking about how hard it was to go to sleep last night because I just had these looping thoughts. How many of us do that, where we just keep thinking about the same thing, and and here's where it happens. We have these looping thoughts, and then I start to frown because I'm really concentrating, partly because I'm really concentrating. It's like I'm focusing inward. The other reason is because it's really starting to bother me. And then this tension right here moves down into my body. And then all of a sudden now I'm all tense and I can barely breathe. And, then that's that cycle I recognize and then I acknowledge. and then I inquire, and then I nurture. R.A.I.N. So what are some things in your life that are really difficult, but you cannot not do them? Like for me, I have family responsibilities here in Modesto where I can't stand coming to, but I come here because I love my family. My grandmother drives me nuts, but I love her immensely. And there are times when I have to practice R.A.I.N after we have interactions. And so it really helps ground me and center me. And also it has helped heal me. And I don't have my book today, but these are all things that are taught in Tara Brach's Radical Compassion. And so I just wanted to check in this morning, say good morning. I don't normally record in the morning, by the way, because, I've got pretty bad allergies, so I'm always all stuffy and, a little rough in the morning. But I woke up thinking, this was a perfectly good example for the channel, not being able to sleep well last night and having to do my R.A.I.N practice in order to fall asleep so that I would stop having all these looping thoughts. And it was helpful. And that is something that we can do that is self-care. That is a self-care thing. It's also a self-love thing. It's also a self-compassion thing. That is a very compassionate thing to do, instead of beating ourselves up for the feelings that we're having. Instead, we ask, what do you need? And nurture it. It's really counterintuitive, but it helps a lot. And so anyway, I'm just rambling now. I have a habit of doing that. So with that, have a great day. And as you go through your week and you think about your difficult emotions, don't forget to pause and be kind to yourself and reflect on what you might need in that moment instead of beating yourself up. Until next time, be kind to yourself.